Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Mary Hayes Grieco, and she's here to share with us her new book, Unconditional Forgiveness, a simple and proven method to forgive anyone and everything. Now, gosh, isn't that important as we start our new year? Now, Mary is a respected spiritual teacher based in Minnesota. She has inspired thousands of people since she first began teaching spirituality classes in 1982. Currently, she's the director and lead trainer of the Midwest Institute for Forgiveness Training. She works in private practice as a spiritual mentor and a forgiveness healer at the Well Healing Arts Center in Minneapolis. So let's welcome to the show, Mary Hayes Grieco.
Hi, Marianne.
Oh, what an honor it is to spend this time with you and to talk about this book. I mean, I can't think of a better time than to talk about forgiveness than in the new year.
It's true. A lot of issues come up at the end of the old year as we're looking at what happened, what didn't happen, who's in our life, who left our life. And as the new year dawns, it's really a great thing to have a way of clearing your heart so you can start fresh. You can hit the refresh button, so to speak, and forgive a few things from last year and open up to the best for this year.
Oh, how important is that? So how did you even what started you on the path of forgiveness?
Well, I was seeking my purpose, actually. I was 32 and I had a 2-year-old at home, and I just knew that I was made for something. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew it had to do with healing. I knew it had to do with teaching. And I just did some real earnest praying that year about, show me what I'm here for. Show me my usefulness in this world. And so after about 6 months after I really threw down with the universe, so to speak, about this, my desire to be purposeful and find out what that is, I met my teacher, Dr. Stauffer. And as soon as I met her, I felt like a kindred spirit who was further down the path than me, but who had refined some powerful understandings and tools. And I just was drawn to her like a magnet. And she recognized me, too, as a future leader of her work. So we walked together for a lot of years, teaching me this work and deepening into it. And it really changed my life. I was a place of a lot of old sorrows and disappointments and traumas. And I was really trying to find my joyful, soulful self. And this work brought me there.
How important is that when we talk about forgiveness? For some people, it can seem like this elusive thing. It's like, well, it's there, but I'm not quite sure how to get there.
Exactly.
I've got all this anger. So, why don't you share with us, what does it mean to really, truly forgive somebody?
Well, what it means is that you heal yourself of what has hurt and what has stuck in the hurt, what has kept you remaining inside you as a stagnant old story that you need to let go of, and you need to move through and move into the present moment again. So forgiveness is an ancient concept. It's a main concept taught by all the world religions. But you're right, nobody has ever taught us how to do it. So people often have a feeling of like, I really should forgive that. And, I'm going to try. But then they don't know what to do. And so it just sticks around. And again, they feel that same kind of low-grade resentment or flare of anger, whatever it is. And it's really a life skill and a health habit that I think we're just coming into understanding these days.
So when you talk about unconditional forgiveness, what does that mean? Because that can seem like a really high goal for some people.
It is. For me, it's kind of a way of life. It's a way of walking in the world. So my teacher used to teach this as unconditional love and forgiveness. Two important principles that are connected to each other and arise out of each other and help each other. But then as I was writing my book, my publisher said to me, Mary, you're actually talking about unconditional forgiveness. You're talking about forgive everyone, everything, all the time, 100%. You're kind of like born again forgiveness person. Just do this all the time. And it's actually kind of true. I went through a period of my life where I was just exploring this and figuring out how to live unconditionally forgiving. And that means you don't get stressed out about the traffic jam. You don't get stressed out about the snowstorm. You don't expect people to be different than they are. You let go, you open up, and you find a new way of walking in the world that's very resilient and open to grace and luck and synchronicity, because we're not any longer in this rigid kind of box of expectations. In my work, we say that forgiveness is the refreshing experience that happens when you release expectations that are causing you to suffer, because reality is doing what it's doing. And maybe we expected things to go a different way, and they didn't. But we don't have the power to change what happened. We have the power to release our expectations about what happened. So forgiveness is the process by which we let go of expectations. And in the method I teach, there are 8 steps that enable you to do that. And it's really quite amazing, because they always work 100% of the time. It always works to take an issue, a story, a problem, and walk it through these 8 steps. And at the end, you feel lighter, you feel refreshed, you feel open-minded, you've let go. It's really amazing. I'm continually amazed by the power of forgiveness.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, to get to that place where you can forgive in that kind of capacity is a big deal. And I think it's a place where not a lot of people have been able to really traverse. So when we look at, unconditional forgiveness, you talked about like traffic and, maybe if someone cuts you off kind of thing, but does it also work for some of the maybe really deep things, like maybe someone was sexually abused or abused in a relationship, or
Oh,
had
yes.
some really.
You especially want it to work for the deep things. I was just kind of giving everyday life examples. But yes, I've worked with many people who are survivors of sexual abuse or rape or abandonment by a spouse, or, really heartbreaking, terrible stories. You would think that, well, that's too bad. You had a tragedy and you're kind of, living that out the rest of your life. But it's not true. I am amazed at the resilience of human beings. I am so amazed. And the thing is that these 8 steps of letting go of a story are the same, whether the story is a small irritation or whether it's a big annoyance or whether it's a poignant heartbreak or whether it's some kind of abuse or atrocity. It it works the same. It just takes shorter or longer. So of course it's going to take you longer to heal from the effects of a sexual abuse background than it's going to take, dealing with your annoying coworker. That's, there's 2 different intensities there. But the point is that you can get there from here. It doesn't take you forever. The worst story I ever worked with was it probably took that woman 2.5 to 3 years to get through it, and that was a serious gang rape story of something she experienced when she was quite a young person, and you wouldn't think a person could get over that, but I watched her do it.
That's just so, you look at what most people would consider like the worst case scenario and how important that is to be able to work through that, because the only person that's really suffering is ourselves when we don't work through that forgiveness.
That's right. I mean, the offender is sleeping well at night. Perhaps they've forgotten about you. Perhaps they don't even remember that they did it. That is often the case, because in the same way that sexual abuse survivors have often buried this incident and they don't remember it for decades, and then one year it just starts coming up and out because maybe they're mature enough to handle it. In the same way, the offenders black out those experiences too. And so they might not even remember that they did that to you. And so are you going to spend the rest of your life being haunted and tormented and not sleeping well and having health issues, all of these things? Because this affects our health if we're carrying big resentments inside for a while, it's toxic and it affects our health. So we need to do forgiveness for ourselves. That's the biggest takeaway here is it's for you. It's not that you even ever have to see the person again or talk to them or work out, so somebody apologizes. That's always nice if you can have it, but you usually can't. so, so the things that people have got to get their heads around in order to accomplish forgiveness, big or small, is one, it's for you. Two, it's not forgive and forget. You need to forgive and remember your story and remember what you learned. Three, it's not hard once you know how to do it. You just need to educate yourself about these steps and then do it. Four, it doesn't take a long time. It's probably going to take you between 45 minutes and an hour and a half when you take a chunk of forgiveness to do. You can do it on a Saturday morning. And it's not necessary for you to work things out with the person that you're upset with. You can part ways and still find peace.
And find it within yourself. I mean, how important is that? My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times you're like, well, I don't even want to talk to this person that hurt me so deeply.
Right. And so you're afraid, well, God, I'm never going to get a forgiveness thing here because I can't stand them. I can't talk to them, or they're not safe. I shouldn't be with them. And you don't have to. It's a private experience. We use the Gestalt therapy device of having an empty chair in front of us and setting the container so that we have a quiet, private space for a little while and get some Kleenex and your couple of pillows nearby to punch if you're angry. And I always recommend that you say a prayer, do something spiritually intentional as you enter into this. And then you lean into these 8 steps and speak out loud and feel and identify and release towards this empty chair. And it's very powerful. It's you can get a whole lot out of you that you couldn't get if you were actually trying to talk it out with this person, because people are too defensive. They can't really hear your anger. But the empty chair is fine with your anger. You can be as angry as you are. And you'll find that it doesn't take that long. Most people, when they drop into the emotions of a forgiveness issue, it's about 20 minutes of feeling really sad or mad, and then it shifts. If you really go there, it's not going to take forever. It's going to shift, and then you go to the next steps. And at the end, you feel very refreshed and clean.
How empowering is that? I think a lot of times when people think about working on forgiveness, it's like, oh my God, this is going to take years. I've got to,
Mm-hmm.
prepare for all this. I mean, I'm sure there's different degrees for everybody, but in general, that someone can work on this within like a 20 or 30-minute segment and get to a point where they're working through it. I mean, how powerful is that?
Well, I would say like step 2, which is when you're doing the emotions, it could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but the whole process might be between 45 minutes and 2 hours. And this is what you've broken it down into, a few chunks. If you're really mad at an ex or at a parent, that's a lot. That's a big story with a lot of things in it. So you might be mad about 3 or 4 major things with your parent or your ex. And you're going to take one of those at a time, just one, and really go into it and really clear it out. And a couple weeks later, you can take the next one and really go into it, really clear it out. Each time you do it, you're on higher ground. And if the person is still in your life, you'll find that the relationship starts shifting for the positive, even though you never tell them a thing about doing forgiveness. The dance starts changing. So I experienced that with my dad when he was alive, and I forgave him 3 big sessions over 5 years for his absence during his alcoholic years and his unwitting harm to me a few times. And each time I did it, the next time I saw him, there was just so much more naturalness and sweetness and ease in our interaction. And when he left the earth, I was really good with him. It was a very peaceful passing for me because I had really cleaned up those issues between us.
Well, it leaves a person in a very empowering place when they can clean up, whatever those things are, because it's really, if it's our journey, our experience, our feelings, we're the ones responsible then for making those shifts and adjustments. So,
Right.
and we can't expect somebody else to do that. That's their own journey,
Right, and they just may not care as deeply, and
or
that
have the
doesn't mean anything
capacity.
bad about us or have the capacity.
Yeah.
I used to say about my dad that uh, he was 100% there with the 25% of him that was able to be. It's like only about 25% of him was able to be fully present because he was a
Mhm.
vet, he was trauma, and he was an alcoholic, but that part of him that was really trying to be a good dad was trying 100%. So I had to let go of my wish that he could have been this or could have done that, or wish it, that he hadn't done the other thing long ago, and just see him for the goodness that he was, here and now. And it really opened up a lot of peace and love between us.
So you talk about 8 steps that people can take. We don't want to go to each of them in detail, but I'd love for you to just kind of briefly touch on them for our listeners.
Sure. They're based in the insights and wisdom of my teacher, who was a psychotherapist for 45 years. And she was also a real spiritual person, and she studied a lot of uh, progressive spiritual things. And she synthesized her understanding from a lot of different trainings into these 8 simple steps that work us through the wholeness of ourselves, works through our will, our emotions, our minds, our boundaries, our energy, our soul, our relationship to the other person, our relationship to life. It's kind of there's a lot of forgiveness methods out there. At this time, there's anything from 1 step to 19 steps. But I promise you, this 8-step method has got everything you need in it. It's holistic, and it's spiritual in a universal kind of way. And it lets you get the feelings out. And the essence of it is really helping you release those expectations that you need to let go of.
So how does your book integrate each of these steps and work with the reader through them?
Well, the book presents a vision of the possibilities and realities of healing as a whole. And it talks about, being human means we're in a spectrum of painful experiences throughout our life, from difficult things, small things to difficult things. And then it presents the idea that we are both a soul and a personality, and that we work together between the soul and the personality to get healing. And then it goes through each of the 8 steps for a whole chapter. And then there's a whole chapter on step 1, using your will, a whole chapter on step 2, releasing your emotions, step 3, letting go of expectations, step 4, restoring boundaries, etc. And then there's also a chapter for self-forgiveness, and also those kind of large meta forgiveness issues. Like sometimes you feel like you need to forgive God or life itself. Like you just feel like, ugh, it's just this whole thing, And every now and then people have a brush with someone or something that's truly caught in evil, and how do you deal with that? So the book addresses all of those steps and all of those facets of forgiveness.
Yeah, it's such a great resource. When we look at the forgiveness piece, is that something that people come to you often with? And they're like, hey, I might be able to forgive my best friend, but I'm really having a tough time with myself with maybe, these things I did in the past.
It's true. It's the hardest one. People are so sad and mad at themselves a lot of the time because we have this human feeling of falling short, of somehow failing our potential, failing who we mean to be, and it's really the big thing people bring up when I teach or when I'm working with them is, I gotta forgive myself. I feel terrible. So that's something that I would say you have to kind of build up the muscles for and get ready to do it. And the book helps you do that. But one of the keys of self forgiveness is really understanding that we're so much harder on ourselves than is expected of us, so to speak. If you believe in your soul or God or higher self or your the the spiritual beings that guide you through life, any of that, no one expects us to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. We just really need to do our best and let go to the imperfection of being a human being. And we're all kind of like kids. We're all kind of like little kids who are learning how to walk or learning how to tie our shoes or do difficult things that we get frustrated with from time to time. And every now and then we need to just give ourselves some mercy and some compassion. And that's what the self-forgiveness process does for us.
That's such an important piece, and it's interesting. Just your book has it very well laid out. The 8 steps, the process with it. When we look at, and you mentioned this, I'd like to touch on it. If someone needs to forgive God, I mean, how does that make like self forgiveness? Is that like a difficult journey then if they're angry at God?
Yeah, it is more difficult. If you are feeling really alienated from God or the higher self, the higher power, whatever you want to call it, yes, it makes all of forgiveness more difficult. You might need to go there first and kind of clean that up. And what's often the case is that we're not angry at the actual God because nobody really knows what that is. It's beyond words. It's bigger than we can understand, but it's there. And so usually what we're doing is we're forgiving a concept of God that maybe we had since we were little and we grew up in a certain kind of religion work, or we've projected the characteristics of our parents onto our idea of God. So, I worked with one woman who felt like, well, God doesn't care about her. God just uses her to help other people, and God never gives her what she needs, and blah, blah, blah. Well, there was a whole projection from her relationship with her mom, and it wasn't God at all. And so, but in the process of getting clear with God, we kind of decide to fire our concept of God, get rid of it. We're gonna dissolve our current idea of God, and we're gonna open up to learning a new one and to meeting a new face of God. And that too is just a kind of a quiet miracle every time it happens, where people are like, oh, wow, I don't know. I just feel so much love and compassion coming towards me and no judgment at all. I thought God judged me, but no, I feel all this love and compassion coming from this new sense. So there's a process in the book that tells you how to do that. But all of this starts with an intention to feel better, and to get aligned with our most powerful spiritual self. So you start with that intention, and forgiveness will be your friend and your best tool to get you there.
Yeah, how important is that? I mean, and it's really that desire to work through that, I would assume, that really moves people forward, and then they can start going, okay, all these things I need to forgive, and they probably have the last on the list themselves.
Well, some people have it first on the list. Some people feel like they can't forgive anyone else till they forgive themselves. Other people feel the opposite, but it doesn't matter where you start. It just matters that you start. It matters that you welcome the practice of forgiveness into your life at some point so you can live larger and more peacefully than you imagined, because all of us deserve to feel safe and loved and good, and discovering who we are as we go along. And sometimes we have to really let go of some old things in order to see ourselves accurately in the present.
Is there medical research that shows like the benefits of forgiveness? I mean, is it good for us?
There is so much medical research showing the benefits of forgiveness. It started back in 1997. At that time, there was only 50 studies in psychology and medicine about forgiveness. And to date, there are 6,000 studies, and that's not that long. That's only a little over, 20 years. It's just exploding. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that emotional toxicity contributes to stress-related diseases, heart disease, back problems, immune problems, chronic pain problems. And the chief surgeon of the American Cancer Care Clinics has come out in the last 2 years saying he's convinced that forgiveness is a super important intervention with cancer. He really believes there's a connection between resentment and certain kinds of cancers. And he's saying that forgiveness has to be part of the healing of cancer. So it's really, really coming to the fore. I feel like this is a the next public health issue, just like smoking was back in the day. And, now people know I need to eat fruits and vegetables. I need to drink water. I need to move my body. Oh, I need to forgive is the next one. I need to not carry resentments around.
Now, when we talk about not carrying resentments around, that's not just for ourselves and our family. That can be in the work environment as well, right?
Well, sure, because we're all contributing to the environments that we're in. And if you're a clean machine, if you are full of clarity and goodwill and good boundaries, you are contributing just with your energy when you walk in the room. People are glad to see you. People feel confidence. It feels like, yeah, things are on track. And if you are coming in dragging a load of resentment, or you're heavy, or you're kind of shut down, it pulls the group down. It pulls the energy in the room down. We all matter, and every bit of self-effort we put into becoming more clear and full of love is helping the whole human race. I believe that it's like we're cleaning up the pond or cleaning up the ocean by working through our own toxic issues and bringing in fresh new energy. So it's certainly has an important ripple effect that goes out from us into our friendships and families and workplaces. And it's interesting the kind of stories that come back to me after someone has done a big piece of forgiveness, how they come back with a great story about how the whole situation shifted because they had just done their side of things and the other people began to open up too.
Mm. How powerful is that? Because if it makes one small change in our experience, I could just imagine the ripple effect it has in other people's experiences as well.
It really does.
Mm. Well, and so Mary, I know that you've got some great events coming up and, places where people can connect with you. Where could they go to learn more about that and be part of your community?
Well, they can join my website community, sign up for my newsletter, and I send out nice articles and news. And there's a podcast about this. My podcast, Rise and Thrive Show. If you get on riseandthriveshow.com, there are a lot of shows archived about forgiveness and the benefits of forgiveness and healing ourselves. And they're light, they're lively. We're talking about meaty stuff, but it's not heavy or painful. So that's a good way to start getting acquainted. And I usually do a public workshop a few times a year. This year, the next one will be May 1st to 3rd in St. Paul, Minnesota. And it's a lovely time to come to the Twin Cities in May. It's amazing. So, and people do come from all over to these workshops. So if they get on my newsletter at forgivenesstraining.com, you'll find out when the upcoming events are. And the podcast will give you plenty to enjoy and think about and open up to anytime you're ready for it.
Hi, that's perfect. My goodness. And they can learn about your books there because this isn't your only book. I know you've got a few others as well. Mary,
Yes.
thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, it was really nice to be here. I'm really glad that you're sharing the light of forgiveness on your show. And it was great talking to you, Marianne.
It's been great talking with you as well, Mary. My goodness, what an inspiring time this has been. Again, if you'd like to connect with Mary, you can at maryhayesgrieco.com for more information. Unconditional Forgiveness is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and select indie retailers. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community, and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Lora Cheadle, and she's here to share with us her new book, Flaunt, Drop Your Cover and Reveal Your Smart, Sexy, and Spiritual Self. After practicing corporate law in California and Colorado, Lora chose to change paths to become the radio host and life choreographer she is today. She's a certified hypnotherapist, personal trainer, burlesque performer, and yoga instructor, as well as popular writer for People House Magazine and Elephant Journal. So let's welcome to the show, Lora Cheadle.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here and to talk about this book. I loved it. I mean, as soon as I picked it up, I was reading through it. It was like, oh my gosh, love, love, love this book.
Oh, good. Thank you. It was so much fun to write, actually. During the process, there were moments I was crying writing it. There were moments I was laughing writing it. And it's always so gratifying to hear other people having happy emotional experiences while they're reading it.
Well, and so why don't you share with us, what was your inspiration behind writing this book?
Oh, that's a great question. I was a corporate attorney for 10 years. And I was also a dancer my whole life. And I've got a bubbly, flirty personality. And I found that I was being judged so often by the tone of my voice, by my enthusiasm, for the way that I looked, instead of for my intellect and what I was capable of doing. And it got really frustrating. And I thought, you know what? Other women must be experiencing this because people that I talked to were sharing stories that I can't wear this, I can't do that, I can't look this way, I can't act this way. And I thought, you know what? Yes, we can. And I'm going to write this book and I'm going to put it out there and hopefully we can start banding together and supporting each other in being beautiful and smart and spiritual and sexy and good mothers and good partners and whatever else, that we may be. Banding together and showing the world that, yes, we can be all of those things, and you may not box us into a stereotype.
Oh my gosh, I love that because, even myself, I've gone through that where it's like, you've got to present yourself in a certain way. And a lot of times it's exhausting to do that.
Yes. And not only is it exhausting, it can actually create health conditions. It can cause us to gain weight, to have things like diabetes. Some of the, autoimmune diseases are brought on by stress. And, I talk about it in my book. It's living life covered up. And that's living a lie. And living a lie is exhausting because we're always worried. What will people think? And what will people find out? And what will people do when? And oh my goodness, it's just time to drop all that and start living.
So you call yourself, and appropriately so with your background, my goodness, a life choreographer. So what is that? And
Oh,
what, yeah,
yeah,
what can people, expect from that?
exactly. A life choreographer is somebody who takes all of the pieces of your existing life and helps you rearrange them into a beautiful, joyful, and cohesive dance. Because some people mistakenly think that, okay, if I want to redo my life, it means I need to leave my spouse, get rid of my kids, get a new job, move to a new state. And maybe some of those things, you have to do some of them, but usually it's just a rearranging of those existing pieces. And that's what life choreography is about. And it also goes a little bit deeper. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, so I work with the structure of the subconscious mind. I'm also a dancer. We are complete whole beings and we've got bodies. So when we restructure the mind, we also need to integrate those changes into the body. We need to move. We need to breathe. We need to get grounded and drop into our bodies. So that's part of the life choreography pieces too. Not only do I help you rearrange and recreate all of those existing pieces, but I help you connect your body with your mind, with your spirit, so you can passionately move forward and truly create joy in your existence, no matter what it is that you're doing.
Oh, I so love that. How often do we have these very, practical business sides of us? And then we're so afraid to incorporate the spiritual part as well, because we're like, ooh, what are people going to think? Like you talked about. I mean, you've got such a great background, but you've been able to bring all that together. And it really shows that, no matter what, we can show the whole facets that that make up us.
Yes. Yes. Because so many of us, it's one of those things we all think that we're alone. We all think that we're the only one experiencing whatever pains and desires and frustrations we're experiencing. And when we start bringing forward all those facets, all of a sudden, all these other people come out of the woodwork and they say, yes, I feel that way too. I want to be spiritual, but how do I incorporate it without being labeled as a woo-woo, crazy spiritual woman? And the more we put ourselves out there, the more we connect with other people, the more we empower them to put themselves out there. And pretty soon the entire world will see that we're all this way. We're all multifaceted. We all have spiritual components to us, and we can all be incredibly business savvy and spiritual.
Okay, hold the press. We can actually do that, right?
We can.
Because often I've heard people say, well, I have, a therapy practice or what have you, and I can't have people see that I also do like psychic readings or do this whole spiritual aspect to help women to move. And I love how you just bring that all together. And before we get too far ahead, I'd love for you to also share with our listeners what flaunt means, because you've got some great verbiage behind that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, flaunt is an acronym. The F stands for find your fetish. The L stands for laugh out loud. The AU is accept unconditionally. N is navigate the negative. And T is trust in your truth. And those are the 5 steps that I walk readers through, or I walk people through as I'm working with them individually or in groups, to help them step into their power, to step into their beauty, their brains, their beliefs, and to give them tools to do that in a practical way. So they're not showing up at work in a tiara and a goddess gown and a boa and scaring people half to death, but how they can bridge that gap between still showing up and being professional and powerful in the workplace, but also showing up as themselves.
Yeah, how great is that? Well, and I know that you teach these workshops called Find Your Sparkle. What's that all about?
Oh, it's so much fun. My belief is that we are all souls inside. We are all like this brilliant gem, and we all sparkle in our own unique way. It's just that as we grow, we're told, tone that down. You don't want to do that over here. Cover that up. Cut your hair, whatever it is. So we start covering up that brilliant gem. And then pretty soon we can't reflect that light. that we truly are. So finding your sparkle, the workshops, the courses, they begin by recognizing and releasing everything that is not us. Recognize and releasing the labels. Girls aren't good at math. Moms can't do that. If you're over 40, you can't. Recognizing those labels, rules, scripts, beliefs, releasing what no longer serves us. Then the second part of the work that I do is revealing, getting in touch with who you are. So many of us are so driven and we're so used to doing what we're supposed to do, following the syllabus, checking off the to-do list, that we never step back and ask ourselves, who am I and what do I want? So that's the second part, is revealing your own truth. And then the last part is re-choreographing. And that's similar to what I talked about earlier with taking the pieces of your life and re-choreographing it, taking everything that you've built and created and worked so hard to develop and restructuring it in a way that serves your soul, that makes you joyful and passionate and powerful and brings you energy instead of draining you.
Have there ever been times in your own life that you've not lived your sparkle?
Oh, heck, yes. So many different times. First of all, as a corporate attorney, there were many times where I modulated my voice. I spoke more calmly. I wasn't as enthusiastic. I consciously tried not to smile, not to connect, not to get too personal, because I wanted people to think that I was smart. I wanted people to think that I was professional. Definitely, I didn't live my sparkle then. But, also after I had kids, I left the corporate world. And it was an interesting shift because I lost my identity for a while and it kind of sunk me. And what I mean by that is, as being Lora Cheadle Esquire, I commanded a certain level of respect. People would introduce you as an attorney and people would be like, ooh, and they would give you that respect. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't being introduced as this corporate attorney powerhouse. I was being introduced as their mom or his wife, or I don't know, she stays home. And oh my gosh, it stung and it hurt. And I didn't know how to be that. And I didn't know if I was supposed to fight and be like, well, yeah, but I'm really smart too, which felt stupid. And I didn't know how to navigate that transition and how to tune into my own sense of worth. And it really, to top it all off, my body wasn't as good because I had just given birth to 2 kids within 22 months and I didn't have time to work out and I didn't have time to take a shower and I was exhausted all the time. And it just really brought me down because I didn't know what to do or who I was or who to turn to. And I didn't even feel like I could say, I'm exhausted. I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing. And how do I do this? I didn't have anyone to reach out to. And I definitely lost my sparkle during those years as well.
I think that's true for so many women, where we have changes in our lives, careers, and all of a sudden we're like, where the heck am I? And how did I get here? And it's easy to have our identity so wrapped up in what it is that we do for a living.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things, when I talked about recognize, release, and then flaunt, one of the things that I always ask people to do is to describe yourself, but don't use anything around you. Don't describe yourself in relation to another person. Don't describe yourself by your career or your education or your paycheck or your home or your car. And it's hard at the beginning, but then once you start moving into that space of who you are, it just feels so good.
I bet you get people that kind of cringe when they start doing that, going, ooh, I'm supposed to remove my title of the work I do or the accomplishments I had. So what does that leave me?
Yes, exactly. And people feel so empty and so worthless. And that's what I like to point out. We do feel worthless because we have attached our identity to things that are outside of us. We have attached our value to what other people tell us our value is. And I call it our naked self-worth. And that's what I have people move into. It's your naked self-worth. We should all have this incredible sense of worth about who we are as a human, as a soul, as a sparkly bright light. And when we find and step into that naked self-worth, suddenly we're not rocked by somebody else's judgment. Of course, it stings if somebody says something. Of course, it hurts if we lose a job. Of course, it's awful if we go through a divorce. But we still know that we are worthy, and it helps us seek even greater things for ourselves because we know that we are enough.
Oh, I love that. That is just so powerful. And for someone that's going, okay, I want to do this. I want to get my sparkle. I need this. So how do they even start this? How do they ignite their sparkle and integrate it?
A couple of different reasons. They can reach out to me. I think the biggest piece of this is communicating. It's reaching out and saying, is this possible? How does this look for me? Tell me more. Also, throughout the year, I am constantly running challenges, 10-day Find Your Sparkle Challenge. Oh, I've got on my website, LoraCheadle.com, if you sign up for my newsletter, the very first thing you get is 15 ways to flaunt today. And it's just a downloadable ebook that you can read through and you can start saying, hey, here's one thing that I can do. Here is one step I can take, and then I can see how it feels. And then maybe the next week you can pick up one other thing and say, you know what? I'm going to do this today and I'm going to do this tomorrow, and slowly step into it. Because flaunting is a practice. It's like any skill that you learn, whether it's playing a musical instrument, speaking a foreign language, we have to take steps. We have to practice. We have to think about things. We have to get it into our bodies. And once we learn it, it becomes easier and more enjoyable. And the benefits are so tremendous. I promise, once you start flaunting, your entire life will light up.
So how does naked self-worth integrate with this? And where did this concept come from?
Oh, I have a background as a dancer. And one of the forms of dance that I absolutely adore is burlesque. And for people who don't know what burlesque is, some people out there might be thinking, isn't that stripping? No, it is not stripping at all. Burlesque is a parody, and it takes our taboos and it turns them on their head. And female nudity is a taboo in our culture. So the removal of clothing that is done in burlesque, and there's never nudity, but the removal of clothing is done to show, hey, look at this. If I take off my jacket and show my shoulders, what's underneath? I'm pushing an edge. Why is nudity a taboo? What does that mean for you? What's it bringing up? So the nakedness in our physical bodies is so similar to the nakedness in our emotional body, in our intellectual body. We all build up walls. We wear costumes. We wear masks. We pretend, yes, I'm the perfect mom. Yes, my business is perfect. I'm making millions of dollars and have thousands of clients every day. My home is always perfect. I only eat organic meals. My car is clean always. We have all these masks. And burlesque is about taking down those walls, taking off the masks. And that's where the concept of naked self-worth came in. It's let's all get naked together. Let's show ourselves as we are, not as we think we should be, because that's where our power lies. And if I can get up on stage as a 50-year-old mom who's also a lawyer, who's also a spiritual person, who's also all of these things, and show you myself naked and authentic, I know that I can do anything because I am so set in that naked worth that you can judge me. You can see that I don't have a thigh gap. You can see that I've got belly fat. You can see all these things about me. And I'm okay with it. And when I'm okay, it gives you permission to be okay and to let your hair down a little bit too.
Well, you do use some terminology that some people would go, gosh, okay, that's also could be a taboo when you talk about fetish and find
Yes.
your fetish is number one. So what do you mean by that?
Find your fetish. Fetish has got several different definitions. First of all, yes, there's kind of that meaning that you think fetish, ooh. Fetish is actually something that we're just really passionate about. It's finding your joy. It's finding your pleasure. So there's that definition of fetish. But what I really mean by find your fetish is using it in terms of Dumbo's feather. Dumbo believed he could fly if he had his feather. That is a fetish. A fetish is an object of reverence, an object of devotion that we believe has magical powers. And sometimes we need that little thing outside of us to make us believe that we can do that. And that is how I interpret fetish. It's finding that thing that is going to carry us through, finding that thing that we can hang on to, that will give us that power to take steps that otherwise we might go, oh, I'm not quite brave enough to do that now. And that's what I mean by finding your fetish.
So if you have someone that feels like emotionally they're flatlined, there's just like nothing there for them and they know they need to make a change, how do they even get to the place where they can find their fetish?
So many of us, first of all, I just want to echo those sentiments. So many of us are at that place. And I just want to say, if you are listening to this and thinking, I have no emotions, you are not broken. You are totally normal. And finding your fetish is tuning back into all the things that bring you pleasure and joy. And the first thing that I would ask people to do is to remember their childhood, to think about some of the things that brought them joy. Kids play for the sake of playing. They don't play because it's going to better them in some way. They don't play to impress people. They play because it is pure, uninhibited joy and they lose track of time and they're just completely absorbed in that world. To think about some of the things that brought you joy and to see how those can be recreated in your adult life and to give yourself space to fail. If you loved playing soccer and you go grab a soccer ball and you kick it around the backyard and you think, this is stupid, that's okay. Finding your fetish doesn't happen overnight. But think about what it was you enjoyed about kicking around that soccer ball. Was it being outside? Was it the fresh air in your face, the smell of grass under your feet? Was it using your body and running? Was it connecting with other people and having strategy? What was it about the things that brought you joy? For me, and I hope some of the listeners laugh, I mentioned I love dance, but I also loved playing on the playground and I loved the bars. And one of the things that I really loved was there were like 3 bars and they were parallel to the ground and you would just sit on them and you could spin and spin and spin. I would love that. Well, as an adult, one of the things that I moved into was pole fitness and pole dance because it was me grabbing onto a bar and spinning and twirling and flying free. And no, I didn't find that overnight. It was a long, slow journey getting there. But that brought me back to being on a recess and letting the ribbons fly out of my hair and getting messy and dizzy and laughing. And that's the first step, is just experimenting with play and finding again something that brings you joy.
So what part, and I know, this is probably like a really simple question, but I think a lot of times women are a little afraid to be authentic. So when we are brave to do that, how does flaunt give us that personal empowerment to be able to get to that level of authenticity?
It's all part of that building into that naked self-worth, of being so clear as to who you are and to who other people are, and not conflating somebody else's opinion of you with who you really are. And once you find yourself, it's really okay to be authentic, because the reason that people are afraid to be authentic is they are afraid of being judged. They are afraid that if they put themselves out there, people are going to say, you're a freak. That's weird. I don't get it. And they're afraid of being judged. Flaunt helps you step into your naked self-worth. So when you are judged, you're okay. Like I said, it doesn't stop hurting sometimes. Sometimes I still will be judged and I'll think, "Ow, that hurts." But then I'm able to realize, you know what? When they are judging me about my body or whatever it is, I know it comes from a place of concern about their own body. If somebody is judging me, it says everything about them and their beliefs and their limitations. And they're seeing something in me that they kind of wish they could step into. Otherwise, it wouldn't trigger them. And otherwise, they wouldn't actually take that time to reach out and judge me. And then I can bless them and I can release them and I can smile and maybe even offer them a piece of flaunt because I can tell by their judgment of me that they're really wanting to move into this journey as well. And then it just makes it all the easier for me to be authentic because I'm more clear with who I am and I'm more centered on my value and I'm more in a place of love and unconditional acceptance for where everybody else is on their journey.
Isn't that the truth? When we are in this place where people are making those comments, it really is because it's bubbling up their own insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Well, and what a great realization that is. And it allows us then to kind of move into our authentic self, really not really caring about so much of what people say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting because I've had people ask me before, you're telling me I don't have to care about what people say. Isn't that armor? Isn't that a defense? And my answer to them is no, because it's a true caring about yourself. It's like when a child will come up to you and tell you something and you honor them and you respect them, but oh, my 3-year-old is telling me this. My 3-year-old is telling me something about, a Santa Claus or something that's real in their world. And we understand it and we can honor it and we can love it, but it doesn't impact who we are. And we have just been trained to be such good little girls, to not brag, to make everybody else around us happy. And it feels so good to finally care about yourself as much as you care about other people and to honor yourself as much as you honor other people. And it's so freeing to be that open and that authentic.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, women for a very long time have been pigeonholed into different roles and expectations. And to be able to be your authentic self and wear many hats, how great is that?
Yes. Yes. It feels so good. And it makes you show up more fully in everything that you do too, because you're not at work pretending that so many women are at work and they're thinking about home, but they have to pretend they're not thinking about home. And then they get home and they're thinking about work and they're trying to be present for their family, but they can't because they're thinking about work. And we're always in this tangled up headspace. And when we can just let all of that go, we find so much more time to get actual work done because we are where we are. And then when a thought of being somewhere else pops up, instead of having shame and judgment around it, we just acknowledge it. We can be like, oh yeah, and I need to take care of this because that's a part of me too. And then we move on. And it's so much easier.
What if we have a part of ourselves that we're not really that thrilled about? It could be maybe a gap in our teeth or, our thighs are too big. What do we do then?
Oh, we all have those parts. And what's really funny about it? The more we try to suppress something, whether it's our emotional shadow, our physical, like you mentioned, the gap, the thighs, something like that, the more we try to repress something, the bigger it gets in our mind and the more power it has over us. And again, using that burlesque analogy, I say let it all hang out and show it and put some light on it. Now, that's not initially saying pull out your belly fat and just let it all hang out and tell people, look at this, I love it. That's not realistic. But what is realistic is looking at your body, showing it in a way that is comfortable for you. If you have a gap in your teeth, maybe saying that to some of the people that you know and that you trust. I really don't like this gap. It makes me feel self-conscious. Smile. Show your teeth. If you have a gap and you're always pulling your lip down and not fully smiling, my challenge to you is stop that. Show it and put some words around it. I've always smiled this way because I don't like the gap in my teeth, but you know what? It feels better to smile, so here you go. It feels so much better emotionally when you call a spade a spade. That's what I talk about when I talk about accepting unconditionally. Accepting unconditionally is accepting all of the parts about us as they are without condition. So it seems counterintuitive, but the more light and love and energy we bring to those pieces of us that we want to hide, the more we can fall in love with them, the more we can accept them, and the more okay they are. Now, for a little story here, I have mentioned burlesque again. One of the biggest things that I think is so empowering about burlesque is it's all ages, all sizes, all orientations, all whatever. You start learning there's so much beauty in the quote unquote flaws. There is so much power and joy in people who do not look like fashion models getting up on stage, dancing, moving, reveling in who they are. And then when we're all that way, it's like, oh, I see the beauty in that jiggle. I see the beauty in that body that has had the mastectomy. I see the beauty in that spine that has got scoliosis. I see the beauty in the balding. I see the beauty in the age. And the more we put it out there, the more we allow ourselves to be seen and admired and loved by people because we're all real.
Well, Lora, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
They can connect with me online. My website is Lora Cheadle, LoraCheadle.com. And again, you can sign up for my free 15 Ways to Flaunt today. They can also join my Facebook community, Flaunt Flock, and really find that connection, love, and authentic support with other people out there.
Well, Lora, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun to talk and to share.
Well, thank you, Lora. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Flaunt. Again, if you'd like to learn more about Lora and her work, you can go to LoraCheadle.com for more information. Flaunt is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just what moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Friday and Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.